Welcome back. A little different setting today here in the laboratory. We're in the putter lab of the laboratory. I'm joined by Joey Kurtz, as you've seen from, actually you've been on a hot streak of videos. You've been in the last
three straight.
Got to bring you back in here, especially for the video we're talking about today. Normally we're on the other side of this wall, kind of right behind where you guys are, hitting some clubs. But today, like I said, we're in the putter lab and we're talking about maybe the hottest club in golf right now. What would you say?
Yeah, fair to say. Lab.
Yeah, we got Lab. Fresh off the release of the Oz 1 and then Oz 1i with the insert and non-insert version of both of those. Putting is such a personal aspect, like it's such a personal part of the golf game where it's, for me to set putters down and tell you how I feel and like how it's hitting, what my numbers are, could be, I mean, for other people it could not be more like opposite of what they're gonna see with it, of what, like if I put down a Lab and my consistency shoots up to mid 90s versus if I was putting with, again, name a different putter in here, that's not a one-to-one that if like you're gonna see it. We might do a video here in the future where I go through another Lab fitting because I am curious in Oz. I want to see how that might benefit my game versus my DF3. So we might do that in a vacuum of how it fits me. But I just wanted to lay it out there. That's why this video isn't a very numbers-centric video. This is more of, we haven't talked a lot about Lab in here, and it's the question we get a lot in the golf store. So I wanted to answer maybe some of those questions that we get all the time and have a place for that to kind of live out there. If you could just, 1 to 2 sentence, quick summary, what is Lab? What is a Lab putter?
Lie balanced and point and shoot.
Point and shoot.
Super friendly.
So what gives it that point and shoot capability to where it is, again, I mean, probably one of the more forgiving putters you can find on the market?
Yeah, right. So I mean, obviously, as Luke kind of just described, right? Super friendly. Obviously, the whole thing, right? Obviously, we're all used to your face balance, toe hang. Obviously, Lab sits square to target, right? So it's the whole concept. If this was in its pendulum, right, and moving with no moving parts, doesn't open, doesn't close. So at that point, it always wants to stay square and maintain that.
If you, I mean, I'm sure if you're watching this video, you might have been someone that's been on YouTube before and looked at other videos talking about Lab. You throw it in what they call the revealer. You can pretty much take a full driver swing with that in there, and that face is going to stay dead square the entire way. The first time I saw that video, that was my kind of jumping off point to, oh, I think I need one of these putters. I'm a guy that, I've always been better on the ball striking side of golf, but I've always had the hot putter, I guess, curse, where it's like some days, ball striking's good, putter's good, good scores.
Understand.
A lot of those days, good ball striking, bad putter, leaves to me wanting to pull my hair out at the end of the round. Lab, I mean, putting a Lab putter in my hands gave me the confidence after seeing the numbers in here of, okay, as long as I don't fall over while making a putting stroke,
right,
I think it's going to start on line. Having that lie angle balance, I think, is what really gives them the edge. Because in the copycat world that is golf, over the last kind of year and a half, we've seen a couple other companies come out with that zero torque putter, which again is another way to refer to these putters right behind us. You have Square to Square from Odyssey, you have the Antidote from Bettinardi, you have Even Roll Zero, right? All doing a very similar thing, but I mean, you come at the king, you best not miss. There are small differences between them all, and then when you look at Lab compared to those, what maybe separates Lab from those other ones of what they're trying to achieve?
I mean, immediate, it's versatility, right? I mean, you're dealing with what? They go Link, Mez Max, DF3, DF2, Oz. So it's, again, right? They have a plethora of shapes, but the biggest thing is whatever the miss is, we can fit it.
Yep.
I mean, so you get a really good putter, I can make them a great putter. You get a terrible putter, I can make them average to good. So it's the same context, right? Luke is our prime candidate of that. I got to fit Luke for his. So it's one of those contexts where we're starting to see the others imitate, right? Yeah. Golf's, imitation's flattery.
Exactly.
So everyone's coming for the king. The problem is, so far that we've seen, it's as they've continued to come and push for Lab has continued to expand and move even further along. But it's even sightlines, right? We talk about sightlines all the time. Obviously, all of us are golf nerds where it's Golf WRX. It's looking at pictures. It's looking at sites. Hey, what's that? Why can't I get that? Well, tour only, man. Exactly. We're all pushing for that, right? But Lab, I mean, pretty much every head, right? I mean, Link is your minimalist kind of in a way. Yeah. It's built for that guy. It's always used your blade, right? So that's the whole context, and it has the least amount of alignments. But all the other ones, I mean, you're pushing 20 to 40 sight lines.
I mean, yeah, we have, I mean, just on this putter alone, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines all parallel running down the face. And you can do any sort of option. I love what you said about versatility with these guys compared to, honestly, compared to every putter out there aside from, I mean, taking zero torque out. They do have shapes for everybody, and it's more of an unconventional shape, which is sometimes tough for people to get used to, but they've done a good job, I think, recently as they've started to take off a little bit to realize, like, hey, that is always the one hang up. When someone comes in here, it's like, hey, man, this putter, like, I should be able to put it in your hands, it's going to work, but that visual effect of a club, that plays more, that might have more weight than what the end result is. It's like, yeah, sure, I'm making every single putt, consistency's good, timing's good, everything, but it's like, I don't want to look at that. They've done a really good job, especially over the last 2 years with DF3 and then coming into Oz, of some putters that, like, hey, this is more conventional. Oz almost really crossing the barrier into what you would almost call a typical mallet.
Yeah, fair. I mean, obviously those of us or those of, that have followed Lab, right? OG 1, right? Blade 1.
Yeah.
Right? We
block.
we affectionately called it the brick.
The brick,
Because
my bad.
it looked like a brick.
Yes.
It looked like something you would find in a preschool that was for shapes. It was a rectangle. It was 3 inches wide, 1 inch, in as far as that look. And then they had DF2.
Yep.
DF2 is obviously the abrasive one. It has a near and dear spot in my heart. I mean, I love that putter because it's just so ugly. I mean, that's the beauty of it. But yes, like they have pushed, obviously, with guys like Adam Scott buying in super early. I mean, that has done wonders for them because he helped design Mez.
Yes.
He then helped design Oz. So it's, again, right, you have someone that's at tour level that maybe hasn't been the world's best putter. But it's like they've started to push those shapes to where it's not abrasive. It doesn't look as bad. Some of the early ones weren't great, but same stuff. I mean, we've seen some guys that come in with original ones, and those are the coolest ones because that looks terrible. It's come a long way, but it still works the same. So that's a good thing for us.
Getting into more of what I like a lot about Lab Golf, especially in this room we have here. We talk about versatility, but the customability of all of these. I mean, you can get the heads in pretty much any color that you can imagine. You can get any sort of alignment aids you want, different shaft lengths, different head weights. There's so much about these putters that you said, like, as long as you're okay with a little bit of an unconventional shape, we can fit one of these to your every need. Again, down to the color of the head, which, that is that extra. Like, do you want an orange head? Like, yeah, of course I do. What are you talking about? We kind of went over all the different heads. You have DF 2.1, the biggest profile of them all. You have DF 3, so a smaller version basically of that DF 2, where Sam from Lab even noticed, like, hey, that profile of DF 2 was, it is abrasive. That's one that's hard to get over if you're, like, again, making the switch from a more conventional putter. So we go into DF 3, which is just a more minimalized version of that.
Yep.
Then we have Mez and Mez Max.
Yep.
Kind of more of your,
It's a 7 shape. I mean, you call it what it is, right? There's plenty of guys that have been used to seeing a 7, right, by Odyssey. It's their version. I mean, it's similar.
It's your fanged putter.
Yeah, it's a fang, right? It looks like that. So that's kind of your comp for those guys.
And you have one of each size too. You have a Mez, which is the normal Mez, a little bit of a smaller profile again for the guy that's not ready to get out of more of a compact shape. Then you have Mez Max for someone that's looking for a little added forgiveness, extra MOI. Or again, they've already played a mallet before. They're like, hey, I can adjust to this larger profile. And then we're getting into Link. We talked on their blade. Their style of a blade, which is probably the easiest maybe transition from someone coming from your Newport, from your Answer, to just put that down. And even though the shaft is a little bit different. And then our newest one, Oz, both the milled and unmilled.
Yep, milled insert. So it's a good range. Obviously, I think, like you just said, right? If you went shape-wise, you go DF2, DF3, Oz somewhere kind of in between, then Mez Max, Mez down. But that's where, again, Oz is kind of in that good window. Because even DF3, it's better than DF2, but we still hear it out here. It's like, listen, man, it looks weird. Like, okay, fine.
It's just that it's the way it circles on the back end.
It's the front edges. It's the back circle. Now, it's great because you can pick a ball up way easier. That is one of the things where people are like, listen, I can't pick my ball up. Well, DF3 is great for that.
So, talk to me about the shapes of each of these and where one golfer might want to gravitate towards one or the other. Because again, we have something like Mez that's a little bit more linear, right? Where it's kind of more boxed off. And then you get into something like DF3 on the other end where a lot more organic, a lot more crossing lines that aren't as parallel. Talk to me about what you've noticed in here handing each of these heads to people.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those things, right? Like Luke just said, right? You start with Mez. Start really easy where it's very linear. It's not abrasive comparative to maybe some of the shapes to people. Yeah. But because of that, I mean, it's very neutral. It's very easy to aim. It's very easy to square it up. And then as you start to move outwards, right, towards like DF2, DF3, DF2 still carries a lot of that similar front face feature where it's very square at the front, kind of almost boxy.
Okay.
But obviously the back end is rounded, right? It's rounded, has a lot going on. But a lot of people, with DF2, if they don't look at the back of it, that's where sometimes we run into problems. But if they just use the front lines on it and we get the right sights to them, same stuff. They'll just look at the front blade and they know if it's open or closed. It's super easy to see. So it's, again, if you get those guys that are maybe deal with more kind of the rights, sometimes Mez can be tough because it seems like Mez Max, Link fit that person a little bit better that maybe actually aims it left. It's easier to get them to aim it right. No different than if you have someone that maybe aims it too far right, DF3, DF2. Great movers to get them back towards more left.
Yeah.
And then Oz is kind of, obviously it's the newer one, right? We've done a few fittings with it. Obviously we've had some early success, a lot of compliments for it, but it's the same stuff where, think of it this way, right? More round, more right. Okay. So obviously it's not perfectly round on the back end, but it is more round-ish as you start to go from front to back. So with that, it's kind of your neutral. Obviously the no lean options are a really good feature for them because again, all the other ones have some sort of shaft lean / press grip. So with that, that's where Oz is a really good kind of, it can fit either way, but you still get a lot of stability. So if you do have someone that maybe de-lofts it too much and runs that risk of beating the ball into the ground, which is a real thing that we see day in and day out, no lean can work because now it's straight up, lofts a little bit more neutral. And at that point, you don't get them to go that way where all of a sudden their hands de-loft the putter too much.
That was going to be my next question because that is one of the latest innovations we've seen within L.A.B. because in Link only comes in straight up and down. You can't get Link and lean. Every other putter has come stock with that kind of 2-degree forward press throughout the line. Maybe elaborate a little bit more. What does those features do for a golfer, and why does that maybe help with Oz so hey, we can customize it a little bit?
Yeah, so again, it's a common factor that you'll see in here, right? People flip.
Yeah.
Right? It's no different. We've talked about it in club fitting reviews outside, right? It's the same stuff, right? People have that tendency to let their wrist kind of break in a way and go this way. But it's the same stuff. It's simple, right? If you just watch someone putt, right, you will get people that go that way, right? Now, it's not that extreme, but it's the same context. So when you get lean, everything's already starting this way. So now it's easier where, hey, even if they flip, that's fine. They're closer to true zero of what the loft is of the putter. So at that point, it's a real good helper. And then same stuff, right? If we deal with someone that maybe does this motion where they can hold it much easier, no lean's great because now all of a sudden we can actually give that person that putter and now say, hey, move the ball around. Yeah. Try moving it up. Try moving it back. Let's try to get to a level there. So that's a real good thing for us.
Then, go into even what we see of, because it doesn't only come in a standard length putter. You can do a little like a longer counterbalance version, which is what I play. You can do an arm lock. You can do a broomstick. What normally, when you're fitting someone in here where they've played a standard length, let's not say they wanted to try broomstick, at what point would you say, hey, maybe let's try this broomstick? And what tendencies are you looking for to maybe make that switch?
Where it's like broom, sometimes you get guys with pathwise, right? Say the path is way out of whack where it's more left, more right, something like that. Sometimes something that's more vertical where they can kind of almost not anchor but get more solid. It's easier, and even though it's foreign, speed control may be a little rough at the start, but if they do stick with it, usually you'll see their path instantaneously, cut in half, or sometimes even where you get a guy that's way left or way right, he gets closer to true zero. So it's like, okay, we can work with this. But even then, it's that question of, hey, do you feel immediately comfortable? If I put you to a golf course tomorrow for your club championship, would you feel good?
Yeah.
Maybe not. Okay, well, let's try to work our way through that to find a happy medium compromise. Yeah. Those are the immediates. But again, broom's popular. But obviously, like Luke said, he uses a counterbalance. I mean, there's a lot of people that are intrigued by that counterbalance theory. But even then, you can go standard and go heavy head, right? You can make it super stable, even more stable than it already is at standard weighting, which is a good thing for us.
As we get into stability, stability, MOI, these are all buzzwords that we have been kind of bombarded with over the last couple of years especially in the driver market, even in the iron market, but especially in here.
Yep.
You want, if there's, driver might be primary, but if there's a place you want the most forgiveness, it's in these guys. Yep. L.A.B does it all the way through the club, from the head all the way on up. Talk to me about the different shaft options that we have available within this line.
Yeah, so right, steel's going to be your generic, right? Like that's your floor.
Yeah.
Right? At that point, you start moving into what they refer to as Acra, right? Acra Golf, we've all heard of them. They have sourced them out to build their putter shaft, or one of their options. Comes in white and black. Then from there, you start moving into Gears is the new one. Gears is made by a company that is called Gears.
Yeah.
So it's kind of built along the same lines as like TPT. TPT is kind of the mountaintop as far as their profile goes, where, you look at someone on tour using a L.A.B putter. Majority of them have TPT. So people are like, what is a TPT? What's it do for me? It's heavier than steel. It's stiffer than steel. So it's the same thing. It's for that person that really says, hey, I want every advantage I can get.
Yeah.
Like, how stable can I go? It's, again, you're pushing for every edge.
Yep.
Especially with putting, right? It's 1 percentile. It's a 1/10 of a degree. It's one of these little things where any edge you can get to help it be A, more square, B, return to where it needs to. Same stuff. Acra is a little bit lighter than steel. That is one thing we will frequently hear where it's like, man, it just feels light, even though it's super stable for a graphite option. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things where someone says, hey, steel feels heavy. Okay, we can instantly move over to Acra, right? Because at that point, it's going to feel a little bit lighter, may feel a little bit more give in it. Some people like that. Some people outright just say, hey, it feels terrible. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, let's go back and try to find a compromise with it.
So to kind of wrap up our conversation on L.A.B, obviously, it's one of the hottest putters in the game right now. Everybody wants to try them out. The one thing, because we spent the last however many minutes talking about how good L.A.B is, I just want to say one thing, that it isn't for everybody, right? You have the people where, with a traditional putter, with face balance, with toe hang, they control that a lot better. Like, they like to feel that. They want to feel the face open and close, as opposed to where L.A.B, you just kind of have to move your hands and it moves with you. But that thought doesn't work well for everybody, and that's, again, why it's all the more important for you to come here and try it out. See what it's all about. See if the height matches what your expectation is, if it's going to better your game, because that's the end result. Is it going to better your game, or is it not? And that's what we're going to figure out in here. But other than that, man, thank you so much for joining me in here.
Anytime.
I learned a little bit more today than every time I talk to you about L.A.B, I feel like I learned a little bit more. Thank you guys as always for watching. Again, I want to do a little bit more content in here. We haven't done any, this is going to be our first video centered on putters. I want to do some more. I know putters are near and dear to both of our hearts, so we could sit in here and geek out for hours.
There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
So, for
so
sure.
Stay tuned for that. Again, comment stuff below. Thank you guys as always for watching. I'm Luke.
I'm Joey.
See you guys.